Are you looking for better shooting experience? How about a facility where you can shoot all of your firearms in the same day, where you can move and shoot steel, draw from the holster, and practice your rifle work up to 600 yards? Shoot a very challenging sporting clays course or a round of trap or skeet. You can do all that and much more at the Aurora Sportsman's Club. Hi, I'm David Lombardo, president of the Aurora Sportsman's Club. If you love the outdoors, you'll want to know all about Northern Illinois' largest outdoor shooting facility, the Aurora Sportsman's Club. If you're a novice looking for a basic course, an experienced shooter looking for an advanced course, or perhaps you want to participate in your favorite shooting event, or just spend an enjoyable day with the family, the Aurora Sportsman's Club is the only shooting facility in the region that offers all that and more. Interested? Then you won't want to miss the next orientation and tour of the Aurora Sportsman's Club. Call, email, or visit our website today to find out how you can become part of a better shooting experience at the Aurora Sportsman's Club in Waterman, Illinois.
He is the human Molotov cocktail that they can legally throw into the system that stole their lives from them.
So we're going to create a new government that serves you, your family, and your country.
It's time for On Target Radio, Chicagoland's only radio show dedicated to the red meat issues that affect your life, from gun control to freedom of speech. Now, debating, debunking, and discussing today's hot issues, here are your hosts, David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz.
Welcome to On Target Radio. Tonight, David's rant of the week is Liberalism, the Merchant of Death, with David and Gretchen talking about school shootings and how the liberal message strays far from the truth in an attempt to sway public opinion. All that and more on tonight's On Target Radio. So give us a call at 815-205-1584. That's 815-205-1584. Or go to Facebook, like our page, On Target Radio, and ask a question or make a comment there.
Today's Rant of the Week and more of David's work can be found at bearingarms.com. And now, from the seething cauldron of personal opinion, it's David's Rant of the Week.
So, we've had yet another horrific school shooting. Despite what liberals would have you believe, pro-Second Amendment people are just as shocked and have just as much, if not more, desire to stop the insanity. The difference is, we prefer to stick to the truth when we discuss how to deal with the situation. There are several clear reasons why nothing positive gets accomplished with respect to finding a solution, not the least of which is liberals simply distorting the facts at best, and more often simply lie to support their point of view. For instance, the press has been reporting the liberal talking point that there have been 18 school shootings so far in 2018. It's nonsense, of course. They're using totally unrelated situations to gin the number of 18, up to 18, such as the gun accidentally that discharged in a glove compartment in a car that was in a school parking lot long before students arrived. Another of the alleged 18 school shootings was a man who parked outside a Michigan elementary school and called police to say he was armed and suicidal, and then subsequently committed suicide. The catch is, no one was around and the school had been closed for 7 months. Bloomberg's Every Town for Gun Safety and Moms Demand Action simply make up statistics, and the liberal anti-Second Amendment press carries the water for them. It's a play straight out of Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. If you say it often enough, loud enough, it becomes the truth. The real truth, however, is that decades-old liberal policy in education creates the problem. From the earliest grades, students are taught that they have a right to not be offended. They aren't allowed to say or do anything that might upset others, and the right of an individual outweighs that of everyone else. As a result, anything that a student finds offensive becomes justification for striking back at the offender. Despite what anyone says, games that glorify killing others, and particularly police, are nothing more than advertising that breaks down social mores designed to keep societal aggression in check. One of the things that all these shooters have had in common is a sense of righteous indignation over some perceived insult or act against them. There is no innate inhibition left in these individuals. To make matters worse, liberalism shields the socially deviant, unless, of course, the socially deviant is conservative. But for the rest, it is wrong to call the cops and tell them, "My next-door neighbor Bob is constantly talking about how much he hates the principal of the local high school for firing him. And by the way, every day in his backyard, well, Bob practices blowing open a fake door with an explosive and runs through it shooting." Obviously, we can't tell anyone about Bob because it would be violating his right to privacy. It's never about the shooter. It's always about the gun. The most overused and hollow phrase in the news is sensible gun control. But we've seen what liberals call sensible gun control, and it always ends with total confiscation. They constantly put forth unrealistic concepts such as the Second Amendment is outdated. The Founding Fathers would never have included a Second Amendment had they any inkling of what modern weapons would be like. The Constitution is a living document and needs to be updated to fit the times by eliminating the Second Amendment and other equally ridiculous notions. The truth is, it's about the shooter and nothing else. In a civilized society, the aggrieved takes the aggressor to task through legal means to seek justice. Unfortunately, liberals have instilled a sense of long-established systems such as police, the courts, and government are against citizens and should be avoided in favor of personal revenge. Take to the streets, burn cop cars, beat people to death. These are the hallmarks of liberalism. Instant gratification and the right to seek revenge for even the least slight against one is the new sense of justice. Chaos has replaced a civilized society, and liberals will seek any excuse to bring about gun confiscation because the only thing that has any hope of holding chaos back is an armed citizen, and that, well, that would only serve to chill the liberal dogma. And that, Gretchen, is my rant for the week.
Yeah, Eric and I were talking before the show that, even though almost a week has passed since the event, that's pretty much still all that's on Facebook.
They just keep pushing it, and it's a terrible thing.
And it's also regular people, lamenting, searching
Right.
for answers, saying, can't we have a discussion? Well, of course we can have a discussion. It's not going to end the way you like, but of course we can have a discussion.
And there you go. And these stories written by liberals who are pretending to not be always start with, "I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment."
I believe in the Second
Yeah,
Amendment.
whenever you see that at the beginning of an article, they're not.
Red lights should go off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But they always start, "I'm a big supporter." Right, that's a bunch
Yeah.
of crap. But, we've said this before. There's not enough law. If you take all of law enforcement, everybody, FBI, everybody, if you take them all, there's not enough people to enforce law. It has to be this belief structure that there's a higher calling.
Right.
We've talked about this.
Yeah, I think it was John Adams said that this form of government is wholly inadequate for anything but a moral people.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And liberalism has specifically gone out of its way to strip society of that principle.
Morality, right? Exactly. Especially Christianity,
well,
but
that's the worst.
any morality,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting that radical Muslims are protected by liberals, and yet they do everything against what liberalism believes. They would behead gays in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
And a woman.
Well, I think that's more of a stoning thing, isn't it?
I'm sorry. I get
I think
it.
it's
I get
specifically.
confused.
I think it specifically prescribes stoning.
Although they also throw them off buildings.
Well, that works too.
Yeah, and they hit stone, so that's it's stoning in reverse.
They probably hit some stuff
They're
on the way
facing,
down.
yeah. And I just that reminds me in World War II that Japan and Germany were allies. What were they thinking? Because the Germans,
Right. If
the Germans would have killed all the
I
Japanese.
was going to say, if the Germans thought that the Jews were inferior,
Yeah.
what would they feel about slanty-eyed Asian
exactly.
people? I mean,
they would have it would have come to, they would have then had a war with
Eventually,
Japan.
yeah,
Right.
eventually they would have just said, okay, you've served your usefulness.
Yeah, exactly.
Put
Time
them
to
in
get
the
rid
camps.
of you.
Yeah.
The only saving value for the Japanese is they live on a rock. There's
Well,
no
true.
reason to
They're a
invade
little
Japan.
far away, yeah,
I mean,
and they're kind of hard to get to.
what are you going to get from the Japanese?
Well,
Rock.
exactly.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
maybe a rice paddy.
They have some pretty exotic chickens.
I didn't know that. And
I
I've
think
been there many
that
times.
probably happened subsequent to World War II, however.
We have a caller, Steve, that wants to talk about a high school shooting in California.
Today? Hi, Steve.
I don't know.
I got it wrong. It's Florida. The high school shooting in Florida
Oh.
is what I wanted to make
Florida,
comment on.
California, you know, they're close.
Potato.
The call
potato.
screener put California.
It's not that close. Hey, thanks. It's a great honor to be able to sit in and listen in on another great show with David and Gretchen. I wanted to, talk about some of the social media stuff that has been trending in regards to that shooting. There were some news reports out about students doing interviews, and they interviewed
Oh, I saw
a
that.
female student, and the question was in regards to what she thought about the hero coach / security guard that stepped up and put himself between the shooter and some of the victims. And I don't know, did you see her response? It was his job. It's what he's paid to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Right.
wow.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
No, I didn't see that.
You're supposed to die doing, yeah. That's,
Wow.
stupidity.
So are these the kids that were left to play video games and to shoot and kill everybody and hit a reset button that just doesn't understand the whole concept of right and wrong because they've been programmed and their parents have let them? I mean, I don't know. It's just sad to see where our parents are leading our children, and suddenly it's the gun's fault.
Well, I said this a long time ago, and it's as true now as it was back then. Hollywood made a big deal out of defending all the violent movies and the video games and stuff, and they said this has no effect on people. It's fantasy. People don't believe this stuff. But here's the thing about that: how much money do we lose every time we take a break because we don't make any money during the breaks? But when we come back, we're going to hold that thought. We're going to, isn't it good the way I could just do that? Just
Yeah.
that fast, yeah.
Genius.
When we come back, we're going to expand upon violent video games because I have some thoughts about this. I think that are worthwhile. So when we return, it'll be violent video games and more with more on Target Radio.
Safer USA, Chicago's most trusted name in firearm training, is offering beginners classes, tactical pistol and rifle, long-range rifle to 600 yards, and the most comprehensive Illinois concealed carry program available. The On Target Radio co-hosts David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz will prepare you to carry a firearm for personal protection, including firearm, holster, and ammunition selection. A comprehensive law review designed to keep you out of trouble and even how to deal with home invasions. Firearm, ammunition, holster, class notebook, and lunch are provided. Safer USA and the Aurora Sportsman's Club invite you to participate in this one-of-a-kind Illinois concealed carry program that also qualifies you for Florida, Utah, and Arizona non-resident permits. Find out what over 6,000 students already know at saferusa.com.
Or call 815-741-3474. That's 815-741-3474. Safer USA. Choosing to own a firearm is your business. Teaching you to own it responsibly is ours.
Do you dread writing? Is it challenging to find just the right words to get your point across? Do you put off developing marketing materials because you just don't know where to start? You get one chance to make a first impression, and my editor, Creative Business Services, can help make it a strong, positive one. Hi, this is Gretchen Fritz, co-host of On Target Radio, and I'd like to tell you about My Editor, a business I started to help you overcome those concerns. What you're experiencing is very common. My Editor has helped business owners, candidates for political office, and even authors and public speakers. At My Editor Creative Business Services, we can simply edit your existing work or help you develop an entire writing plan of action from initial project design through final copy. We are easy to work with and will help you get your point across in the most effective manner. If words escape you, send me an email at myeditor@mail.com. Use my editor, Creative Business Services, and go to print with confidence. That's my editor at mail.com or find us on Facebook.
You're listening to On Target Radio with David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz. Here's David and Gretchen with more interesting conversation on gun control, concealed carry, freedom of speech, and other red meat issues that affect your life.
So before we were so rudely interrupted by things that don't make any money for us, you know, I have to ask myself occasionally at night, just as I'm dropping off to sleep, why are we running things that don't pay? What's the point? I'm feeling...
This whole thing is just a hobby. You realize that, right?
No, it's a gigantic sinkhole for money is what it is.
No, not this. That's Safer USA.
And that's another gigantic sinkhole for money. Yeah, well, what are you going to say? But you got to admit one thing, right? I lose my butt on running the club because I paid for it out of my pocket. I lose my butt on the shooting school. I lose my butt on the radio show. You know, when you're good at something...
You're really good at it, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Go with what you know.
Exactly.
Right? Absolutely.
I would say you're a professional, except professional implies that you get paid.
Well, there's that. Yeah, I don't know.
Sort of a little catch-22 there, isn't it?
Yeah. The one saving grace is expert witness work when you get it really, you know, that's nice. But
that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. I have to ponder this stuff. But anyway, before we took the break, I was going to just bring up that billions of dollars are spent every year. Heck, it may be getting close to $1 trillion nowadays, you know, today, in advertising. Everybody advertises, from small little loser shooting schools all the way up to the biggest corporations in the world. Why would everybody spend money advertising if it didn't give a return on your investment? Right?
They wouldn't.
They wouldn't. So we know marketing studies for decades have shown if you advertise and your message is a strong one, it pays, you know, it pays a dividend. It's a return. So how are violent video games not advertising? How is that not considered to be advertising? You play, what is it, Call to whatever, where you shoot cops?
Call of Duty.
Well, that's a military one.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what the other
where
one
you're
is.
shooting bad guys, which...
Isn't that like...
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah,
Grand Theft Auto, that's
yeah,
it. That's it. That's exactly right, right. And, you know, you play that over and over and over and over again, where you shoot cops and gets points.
Mm-hmm.
It's advertising. It's a desensitizing process.
Well, Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman calls it training video.
Right, it is.
Especially first-person shooter. I mean, that's a training video. It's a simulator.
Yeah. And so, is it a surprise? And, of course, Hollywood screams every time you say this because they make millions and millions of dollars off of producing that stuff. But the reality is you are doing just that. You're desensitizing young people. Now, you know, one of the things they say, well, you know, that doesn't really affect people. They know it's a fantasy. So here's the interesting thing. I did some research on that, and I forget now because it's been a couple of years since we talked about this, but there's an age at which people become what we think of as an adult, and they look at stuff, and it's fantasy, and they get that, you know.
That,
yeah, we can watch, you know, shoot 'em up movies and stuff like that, and oh yeah, it's really cool, and we don't go out and do it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do that with a kid that's 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, that's his world of reality.
Right, exactly. And that can, in my opinion, that could be extended if it's a child who is a bubble off center, as which is what I'll say.
You're talking about...
Yeah, well, I'm talking about a lot of young people. That is extended into the early teen years as well.
Sure. Somewhere I read the human brain doesn't actually mature and develop until something like 22 or 23 years old. Mm-hmm. That up until that point, it's still maturationally? Boy, that's not really a word, is it?
No, wow, that
it's
was creative.
Photosynthesis. It's photosynthesis.
That was creative.
And we got a commercial coming up soon.
Oh my God! Okay, we should not be laughing because we're talking about a really serious subject, but that was awful.
But it was a bad. I grabbed a word and tried to adjectivize it or something. I'm not sure what. Anyway, adverbiate it. I don't know what. See this? She laughs at this, but she's crying because
Yeah.
editors have problems with
This
those
is
issues.
literally LOLCI. I'm laughing out loud, but I'm crying on the inside. It's true. My heart is breaking.
How would you say? I'm not even sure how to say it the right way. As one matures, maturationally? No, that's not.
That's the same thing you said before.
Moving rapidly on. The point is this: at some point, people do get to where they realize it's just a fantasy. But if you've been doing that for 5, 6, 7 years, you're like just desensitized. It doesn't bother you.
Oh, yeah.
And just look at these people. I find it great.
Well, especially the killing like the killing in the video games. I mean, video game graphics are a lot better than they used to be, but it's still kind of
gory.
But it's still kind of cartoony. I think that movies, the killing in movies is very,
especially
very graphic, very realistic.
Quentin Tarantino stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I agree. You know, especially very young people, you know, preteens and young teens watching that, you know, a lot. It can be desensitizing as far as this is normal, and you know.
And that's the problem. And liberals always want to make it about the gun. It is not about the gun. It's about the individual. Mm-hmm. Normal people get angry. They get insulted. That's normal. That's what people do. But your outlet for that is not aggression. Your outlet is, okay, you know, you did X or you did Y. We're going to go to court over that, or we're going to do whatever.
You know, you scream and curse in your car, and
then that's it.
Then you forget about it. Or
Exactly.
you text somebody, and you know, there's some bad words in the text message.
And you know, I mean, I'm a Sicilian. I never hold a grudge. As soon as I get even with the guy, I just forget about
It's
it.
done.
Oh
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But it's not funny, but it is kind of. But that's the whole thing. They use this. People say, oh, well, they care so much. They don't give a rat's butt. They will step over literally dead bodies to get on television to talk about what. And somebody kills somebody with a knife, they go to, we got to have more gun laws. Just totally disjointed.
Those are priceless.
Exactly.
Those events are priceless.
And the other one that I saw a number of times was after the Las Vegas thing. Well, see, if you'd had a concealed firearm, it would have done you no good. Well, okay, I'll grant you that. There's 32 floors up, and you know, sure, I agree. Doesn't mean because one situation wouldn't have been possible to quell with a concealed carry gun that you should just give it up.
No,
you know?
of course not.
But that's
Well,
that's the kind of excuses they use.
We talk about this in class all the time. Of these types of situations, everyone is different. I mean, there's nuance, there's similarities between them, but there's also nuance where, you know, somebody, I was telling somebody that I saw a comment on Facebook. It wasn't one of my friends. It was a friend of a friend. And this guy was saying, oh, well, the school should be, you know, all the schools should be locked up. You have to, you know, be buzzed in to get in. I'm like, he didn't come in the school. He got them to come out.
Exactly.
He pulled the fire alarm, which is evil genius. But, you know, there's so much nuance from these, but yet the people who, like you're saying, want to step over the dead bodies to get to the TV cameras, it's the same thing every time.
Talking points. It's talking points, right? It is.
It's just ad nauseum. It's just again and again and again.
And it just becomes so blatantly obvious that with the catchphrases that they all use is somebody who supports the Second Amendment does not start an article by going, I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment. That is I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment, but, okay? Right. There's always a but.
Yeah, usually with us, we've got enough street cred. We don't have to.
Yeah.
We don't have to preface it with that.
Exactly.
Or if we preface it, it's like, you know, I'm an NRA instructor. That's my, you know, that's all the street cred I need. So.
And just to, you know, the article about Scalia, they don't even take the time to understand what they're talking about.
No.
You know, when you look at the issues about what they call assault weapons and what qualifies an assault weapon, every single thing on that list of what qualifies it to be a military deadly weapon has nothing to do with the lethality of the firearm. Zippo, nada.
Yeah.
You know, and bump stocks. Bump stocks have been around for a while. I think 10, did I read 10 years somewhere? I don't remember. Do you ever see? I don't remember where what the number is. Maybe it hasn't been that long. But and the liberals are saying, you know, before that no one's ever heard of them. Well, it's basically true. If you weren't a shooter, I'd never heard about it until about a year ago when I literally heard them.
No, we knew about it the first time we went to SHOT Show together.
And bump stock the first time we went to SHOT Show?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what, 4 years ago?
Yeah, it's about 4 years
No,
ago.
I don't remember that.
That's first time. Well, I'm trying to think if I heard somebody using one at ASC first or if we saw them at the SHOT Show first.
First time I remember it is I was out shooting at ASC and I heard this, and I go, whoa, somebody's got
It might have been. It might have been the first zombie shoot I ever went to.
They had them.
Because I think I did go to a zombie shoot before the first SHOT Show we ever went to. So it was probably at ASC. It was probably at zombie shoot.
Yeah.
I think somebody had one.
We had a guy out there with a binary trigger today, so that was the first time I've heard that.
Oh yeah,
It's kind
crank?
of the same.
Crank?
No, so
Oh,
it's,
back forth.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Right. For people who have no idea what we're talking about, a binary trigger is something
This is gun nerd
you put
time.
into a firearm, and when you pull the trigger, it fires, but when you release the trigger, it fires.
It fires again.
So in both directions, it fires the gun.
Right.
Yeah. And that's pretty quick too.
It was pretty much like a bump stock.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
as far as-
here's the thing a lot of people don't understand. You can take a regular like AR, no bump stock, and put it up against your hip, and the way you hold it, you can basically make it function like a bump stock.
Oh yeah, it's been going on forever.
Right. And the bottom line is it's not the gun. It's not the gun. It's the moron.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that simple. But I was going to say this article about Scalia. These people don't even take the time to understand what they're talking about. And I didn't truly understand that until I watched virtually every one of the Illinois Concealed Carry Subcommittee meetings. And I watched them on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And when a Republican would ask a Democrat why they sponsored an amendment under their own name,
wanted this or that.
right,
Yeah.
under their own name, okay, they proposed it, that individual was incapable of explaining why that was there.
Mm-hmm.
And some young guy, mid-20s to late 20s, would come screaming across the floor with a 3-ring binder and lay it in front of the guy and open it to a page, and the guy would read it and then get up and then he'd answer the question. They had no idea what they were talking about. So this thing with Scalia I found really kind of funny. I threw it in the hopper simply because the headline, even Justice Scalia thought there was no need for an AK-15 assault type weapon. Well, I'll go along with that. I mean, that'd be kind of a weird hybrid, don't you think?
But then later in the article they do type it right, so I think it's just a typo.
Well, if nothing else, they don't have editors.
Well, clearly, the anti-gun lobby could keep me in editing work for the rest of my life. There was another story. There was another story for the show that I was trying to read, and I'm like, this grammar, it's making my head hurt. I'm like, I'm not even sure.
Make your brain explode.
I'm not even sure what's going on here. So John Spann actually texted me, and he said, I'm trying hard to keep a cool head over this. How many more red flags did law enforcement need to do something about this punk?
Well, we can talk about that when we return after a few brief messages. When we come back, you come back, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, he comes back. The disembodied voice will return when we return.
He's got a body.
And we'll be whatever. We'll be back with more
On Target Radio.
Hi, I'm David Lombardo, co-host of On Target Radio, and I'd like to offer you a partnership opportunity. For over 4 years, On Target Radio covered the red meat issues that affect your life, from gun control to freedom of speech on AM 560 The Answer. But a 1-minute commercial was $200, making it tough to find enough sponsors. So last November, we left AM 560 and began podcasting. There's a learning curve to podcasting, and we've worked through the kinks and would now like to make you an offer. You can have a 60-second audio or video commercial for as little as $25 a week. We can also offer fellow conservatives their own radio or video podcast for as little as $100 a week with equipment and technical personnel included. You provide the content and host, plus get 6 free minutes of commercial time you can sell yourself. If you'd like to be an On Target Radio sponsor or explore the possibility of having your own show, call me at 815-741-3474, and let's explore the possibilities together.
You're listening to On Target Radio with David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz. Here's David and Gretchen with more interesting conversation on gun control, concealed carry, freedom of speech, and other red meat issues that affect your life.
This segment is brought to you by the Will County Grassroots Division of the Illinois State Rifle Association. Join like-minded friends supporting the right to keep and bear arms in Illinois at 7 p.m. on the third Wednesday of the month at the Silver Dollar Restaurant in Elwood, Illinois. This month's guest speaker is Will County Treasurer Steve Weber, who is up for re-election and will also be talking about his new archery business in New Lenox. Come and hear Steve talk about Top Shot Archery on February 21st at the Silver Dollar Restaurant in Elwood, Illinois.
There with trip you up with copy?
Well, yeah. Normally it has the date and time again at the end, and last time I wrote it in there, so this time I just tried, remembering to put it in there. It didn't work out. Yeah, I need more practice.
The AK-15 assault weapon article has some interesting talking points in here. The guy says, James Williams, this was out of News Talk, Florida, says most polls show that as high as 8 in 10 Americans have told the pollsters they favor bans on assault weapons, high-capacity ammunition magazines, and bump stocks. 8 in 10 likewise said they favor a federal database to track all gun sales. And it says, then it goes on to say, for example, 91% of Democrats, along with 76% of independents and 70% of Republicans, said they're for banning assault-style weapons. Now, we go to all the Republican, fundraisers, all Republican meetings and all that stuff. So we know a pretty big number of Republicans. Would you say that 8 out of 10 of the people we know are against this stuff?
No.
Well, then somewhere there's a room full of Republicans who hate guns.
They're all foaming at the mouth.
Exactly, and they have on a sweatshirt, I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment, but, they just make this stuff up. That's just clearly not the case. It's beyond the pale.
Yes.
And what, they never get called in on this stuff.
Yeah, it's true. There's another article. This one is actually the Federalist. So he's actually pointing out that a lot of these people, what they're saying is total crap, and they're just pushing falsehoods.
Say it often enough, loud enough.
Yeah, he says most of these efforts are bolstered by falsehoods and half-truths that make it virtually impossible to have a genuine discussion about the problem.
And that is the problem.
I do like one of the things he says. It's completely out of context, but it really doesn't need any context. There are over 10,000 gun laws being ignored by criminals as we speak.
And there you go.
I like that.
I forget who it was. I think you put it on Facebook. I forget who it was, but they talked about the Second Amendment, the wording. It says a well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed. And did you put that up?
Penn and Teller. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was Penn and Teller. That's exactly right. Yeah, I love those guys. Yeah. I had no idea.
I was surprised.
Yeah,
I didn't know they were pro-Second Amendment.
Yeah. Well, we don't really know about Teller. He just kind of stands there.
Right. He never talks.
And smiles. Nods his head. That reminds me of the movie, what was it? It was a Mel Brooks movie about, what the heck was the name of it? Where the entire silent movie. The whole thing was a silent movie.
I don't remember.
Have you never seen that movie? So
it doesn't sound familiar.
It was called Silent Movie. It's set in modern times. And the deal is that somebody gets an idea to produce a silent movie, like in modern times.
Okay.
So the entire movie, there's no dialogue. It's all written under.
Okay.
But there is one spoken thing in the entire film, and it's from Marcel Marceau. It's just...
It's called irony.
Yeah, it's funny. But what they said was the magic that Penn Jillette made was those commas are kind of important. What the Second Amendment says, and this is always debated by liberals, a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of the free state, saying that you should always have a well-regulated militia.
Of course, we're going to have an army.
But
yes.
they can't take away the right of citizens to bear arms. That's literally how that's written, because there's a comma. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Okay, we get that. Still, the right of the people to keep and bear arms cannot be infringed. So just because you got them, you still can't take guns away from the people. And this nonsense about, well, the Founding Fathers, you know what, that's crap. Because the Founding Fathers were saying you have the right to own the same firearms the military has. Whether they were flintlocks or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's really, I think, disingenuous, because I really believe these people do know what they're saying is wrong.
Oh, yeah.
There were...
At least some of them have to.
The ones who were really spearheading the program, not the people who just memorized the talking points.
Oh, yeah.
There were firearms at that time, during the Revolutionary War, that shot, they weren't like load one at a time. They were multiple shooting guns. It was a handgun. There were a number of things. So these were sort of the cutting-edge thinkers of our time. If they could look at flintlock to the ones that did that, I'm sure they didn't think the technology would end there.
No, they understood the concept of advancement in technology. They may not have had that word, but they certainly understood that they had seen progress in their lifetimes, and that was going to keep going. Of course, they knew that, and they were also rich guys. I mean, they probably
had to be
right. I mean, they probably owned most of that. Like whatever the newest technology was, they probably had experience with it. If they didn't own it, they knew somebody who did.
And the issue is not how advanced the firearm is. That is not the issue.
No.
And we also know the corollary to that is people always say hunters don't need. Who gives a damn what hunters don't need? This is not about hunting. Literally, the issue was having come out of a Revolutionary War where their government turned on them. The issue was you ought to be able to take on the army.
Well, right.
Period.
I mean, it only makes sense in the context of history. It only makes sense that they had just come up against a superpower who had, a very powerful military, a very well-trained military, and they were able to defeat them because they were not able to be disarmed. And so, and that was really what the whole thing started over.
Trying to take their power away.
There was taxation, there was all these other, there was all these other, thorns in their side, but that was the straw that broke the camel's back, was them trying to, the British trying to disarm them. They were like, oh, hell no.
That's not going to happen. It was literally the shot heard around the world. They were going to the powder magazine to take the powder that the colonists had.
Yeah, they were going to the armory. They were going to empty it out.
Yeah, and that did not work out well.
Larry wrote in, he said, I just love how all of, I think he means all of these gun haters think that AR stands for assault rifle.
Yeah, right.
And this article, also from the Federalist, says the assault weapon or assault rifle mostly means scary looking.
That's right.
So we have a first in On Target Radio YouTube history. We actually have 2 callers on the line right now.
What?
One's probably a wrong number.
Oh, well. I'm not sure who the first one is, but we'll go ahead and take the call.
Do we have a name?
No.
Hi, no name. We also.
Hello, this is Raymond Shaw.
Oh, hi, Raymond.
Hello.
How you doing, Gretchen? Hi, David. Good to talk to you too tonight. Great show.
See how I was
Thank
an
you.
afterthought? That was an afterthought.
Well, Raymond and I PM all the time, so.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
We're
Raymond.
buddies.
Has anyone considered how many lives were spared during that shooting with that bump stock? Because everything that I have seen and read over the last 3 years of bump stock says that you cannot control aim with that thing, certainly at the distances and the angle this man was firing.
You're
so
right.
He probably saved lives by using it. And that's the thing we want to outlaw.
Yeah, David has actually said that.
Yeah, when this first came about, I went and did the research on this thing, And I made the case, and others too did it. No, I mean, it's not like I was the first, but the case can literally be made that he would have had a higher lethality count if he'd have used just a common bolt-action sniper rifle.
Yes, exactly.
It's somebody who actually knows how to shoot a rifle at long range. The average is 1.2 lethal shots per. It's a lethal shot every 1.2 seconds. Now, if you got to reload, put another magazine or whatever it is. Let's just round it out and say it's 2.5 seconds, per lethal shot. If you take the amount of time he was shooting, the number of people he potentially could have killed was vastly more than he did. But here's the thing, Raymond. A bolt-action rifle doesn't sound as scary as a bump stock, and it works as a machine. These are the people who think machine guns are killing machines. They don't understand. They only have one purpose: suppression fire.
They don't understand the concept of spray and pray.
Right.
Well, my whole point for me in all this is that if you have some person, nut, wise, whoever, who's determined to kill massive people, and he picks a rifle, I'd rather he use a rifle than all the other things he could do.
Like a bomb.
That would kill far more. That. I mean, we've seen people do it with crock pots.
Sure. And
you can improvise explosives very easily.
You can go on the internet and find out how to build that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the rifle is the less effective way to murder mass people. And this is what we try to outlaw.
Just recently, some guys with, I don't remember where it was, maybe China, I can't remember, a number of guys with knives went and just killed off a whole bunch of people. Was that China?
That happens pretty regularly in China.
This was just recently, though.
Yeah, but I mean, every couple of years it happens.
Yeah. So the bottom line, again, is it's not the tool. If somebody wants to kill people, there's plenty of ways they can do it.
That's what I was saying before the show, is that in Great Britain, I mean, if you think that confiscating guns is like going to be the be-all and end-all of this problem, just look at Great Britain. They essentially, for all intents and purposes, have no guns in anything but military hands. Yep. And, they're having all these terrorist attacks. It's bombs, it's machetes, it's rented trucks.
You bet.
They will find a way to do it.
Raymond, we got to.
The United Kingdom has 4 times the violent crime rate as we do.
Well, and you know what the statistic is that they love to quote? We don't have death by guns. Yeah, but they have death in a lot of other ways. We got to take a break, Raymond. We got to go. But thanks for calling. And we have another caller still on the line. We'll get to him when we come back.
We do.
Okay, we'll get to him when we come back with more on Target Radio.
Safer USA, Chicago's most trusted name in firearm training, is offering beginners classes, tactical pistol and rifle, long-range rifle to 600 yards, and the most comprehensive Illinois concealed carry program available. The On Target Radio co-hosts David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz will prepare you to carry a firearm for personal protection, including firearm, holster, and ammunition selection. A comprehensive law review designed to keep you out of trouble and even how to deal with home invasions. Firearm, ammunition, holster, class notebook, and lunch are provided. Safer USA and the Aurora Sportsman's Club invite you to participate in this one-of-a-kind Illinois concealed carry program that also qualifies you for Florida, Utah, and Arizona non-resident permits. Find out what over 6,000 students already know at saferusa.com.
Or call 815-741-3474. That's 815-741-3474. Safer USA. Choosing to own a firearm is your business. Teaching you to own it responsibly is ours.
In need of a ride to O'Hare or Midway Airport? Well, look no further. The Yellow Checker Cab Company is the cab company for you. With the Yellow Checker Cab Company, you will always be greeted by a friendly face and arrive safely and on time for your flight. Start your trip off right by taking advantage of one of their limos, shuttle vans, cabs, or courtesy cars. And airport trips are not all they specialize in. This 24-hour cab service will pick you up anytime, any day, for any occasion. From bachelorette parties to school dances to just a night out with good friends. Yellow Checker Cab Company has the best rates in town. So sit back, relax, and leave the driving to the professionals. Once you experience their fast and affordable cab service, you'll be a customer for life. When it comes to cab companies, be sure to choose Yellow Checker Cab because you have the right to expect certain things from your cab company. For further information or to book your trip today, call 815-744-2900. That's 815-744-2900.
You're listening to On Target Radio with David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz. Here's David and Gretchen with more interesting conversation on gun control, concealed carry, freedom of speech, and other red meat issues that affect your life. Stand by. Here's Gretchen with your action items for the week.
Attention all Will County patriots, especially those in Homer Glen, Lockport, and Orland Park areas. Save the date for the next fundraiser for Steve Balich for Will County Board. Join Gretchen and David Monday, March 12th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Ruby Agave Latin Restaurant in Homer Glen to support Steve's re-election. Your $35 donation gets you great food and draft beer. House Minority Leader Jim Durkin and State Representative Margo McDermott, along with Lori McPhillips and most of the Will County Board Republican caucus, will be there to meet you and to take your questions. The following Safer USA class is at our facility in Waterman, Saturday and Sunday, March 3rd and 4th, Illinois Concealed Carry 1. This 16-hour class will be taught by David and Gretchen and meets the training requirements for Illinois Concealed Carry as well as Florida and Arizona. To sign up for classes, go to saferusa.com and click on register.
I can't donate to Balich's fund.
Why?
Well, because I need the money to advertise in his newsletter. So we still got a caller on?
We have another caller.
We got another caller. We don't know his name, though, do we?
We don't.
No. Hi, another no name. How you doing?
Steve.
Steve.
Just fine. My name's Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Can you guys hear me? Excellent. Long time no see, Dave. Last I saw you was the Howe camp in Waterman.
Oh.
Looking forward to getting that back happening this year. My question is armed security officers in high schools. We already have the security officers in the high schools. I happen to be one of them. Where would you suggest the funding for that come from?
Well, first of all, you're right. A lot of schools have them. In the Will County Sheriff's Department, we had them like in New Lenox and stuff. There was a name for them.
Usually they call them resource officers.
Resource officers.
SROs.
But they're armed. They're
I'm
armed.
talking separate. Yes, separate from the SROs.
Yeah, but what I'm
security officers in the school.
Yeah, no. What I'm saying is that the precedent of having an armed person in uniform in a school is hardly a new one. So anyone that goes, well, you bring a gun into school, we've been doing it for a long time. The reality is, I think if that were going to happen, it's going to be on a local level. I mean, the school, whatever the taxing district is, they're probably the ones who have to foot the bill. You would think that, I don't know, that there'd be some sort of law enforcement grant program, but see, it's a hard sell. People are not comfortable with it, which is idiotic. I believe the teacher should be able to carry. I don't have a problem. We've literally had cases where a vice principal, in one case, ran out to his car because he couldn't have the gun inside, and then ran back in, which takes a big set of cojones, because you have no idea what you're running into, and drop the guy and stop the guy. So you're right. It's the idea of having somebody in is good. Where the money comes from, because it's a really touchy subject. Don't you agree?
I do. There are already through the cops grant through FEMA. There's that, but that's just on the SRO side of it, not for the actual security officers that are employed by the district itself.
Exactly. The only thing I would say to that, and I got to be careful how I say this, the armed security guard profession. How do I say this?
There's really no nice way to say what you're thinking. I don't think. If I know what you're thinking,
we all know.
This would have to be there would have to be higher standards.
Yes,
There would have to be
thank
a
you.
higher caliber than what we're looking at out there.
So you understand what I'm saying?
What you really want is retired
Yes.
police officers because,
Yeah, working a part-time job maybe.
Better.
right, exactly, yeah, veterans or,
Yeah.
you know, either like retired military, retired police, that's really what you want because, yeah, you want people who are very, very well trained and skilled at differentiating a lethal force situation from not a lethal force
Exactly.
situation.
I mean, I've got the certificate to teach that course, and the amount of firearm training you get is minimal, and you get almost nothing in terms of tactics.
Right. I think my mom had a great idea, actually. Hopefully she won't mind me sharing it, which I don't think she will. She wanted to start a company of grandmas who are armed, and they're sitting at the door of the school so that if anyone comes in, I mean, grandma's already lived a long life, you know. She's okay. She's ready to go. She's armed. And, you know, the kids feel comfortable around her. They're not scared of her, even if whether or not they know she's got a gun. But she's a grandma, so they're all like, "Hey, grandma," you know. I mean, they're all comfortable with her.
Can I picture AK-15?
Right. But you know, if somebody bad comes in the school, grandma's gonna be ready to stop
Unload
them.
on them, yeah. Grandmother in a rocking chair and an AR-15 in her lap. That's nice. Yeah.
Just, you know.
Steve, you're about to say something?
Speaking of AR-15, Channel 2 CBS News contacted me about doing a piece Friday evening on the AR-15 platform with me and my wife.
They
I
want
told them I would get back to them later in the week.
They want to interview you?
Correct.
I would just...
And I was thinking about either calling, I was going to get a hold of you or possibly Belinda Rowe and maybe push that off to somebody else.
Well,
because I do want a positive. I want our side out there.
Yeah, I've done a number of those.
Myself and my wife in the schools.
I've done a number of those, and I haven't had a bad experience. I did one even on national television. But the trick is, you really have to watch what words you use because they can edit, you know. And I've not had the problem. I've been interviewed a number of times, but you really do want to be careful how you respond to stuff. Yeah, I'd be happy to do it if they.
Would you like me to? Well, I'll send it. I'll send it your way if you'd like it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. It's you know, it just depends what exactly they want to do, but sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you calling in.
Thank you guys for the time.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling, Steve.
Have a good one. Yeah, it's I don't know. I've said this somewhere, I can't remember where, but in one of my rants, I think. People think, oh, well, we got Republican president, Republican Congress, which is questionable, and the judges and all that. But the fact of the matter is, it's one step forward and two steps back. We really are losing the fight. And people, you know, they get buoyed by something that happens that's successful. But, you know, I made the comment, and this was not illegal. I just want to point this out. I got my first gun when I was like 15. It was a little revolver. I got it in the back of a comic book. I sent in the thing.
Mail order.
Yeah, and they sent me a gun in a box, right? My parents didn't know. And then I got a .32 automatic when I was about 17 up in Ely, Minnesota. Huh?
Semi-automatic.
What did I say?
Correct. Automatic.
Oh, yes, you are correct. I got a .32 caliber, sort of nondescript name, semi-automatic from a pawn shop in Ely, Minnesota. And one of my cousins used to talk about, this is back in the 60s, going to, now this is a rural area, but going to high school on opening day hunting, and they brought a shotgun with them and put it in their locker. Nobody questioned that. So we had a very free society in terms of fire. You could actually get on an airplane with a gun because they didn't check bags and stuff. They, you know, and we didn't really have problems.
No.
We didn't have problems. Problems really began with a great society and people getting free stuff, not having to work for it, and then they get angry because they don't get the same stuff that people actually go out and live, work. Liberalism is what really caused this. It really is. I mean, there were wingnuts. There was Richard Speck. I don't know if you may not remember that name. That may not ring a bell to you because I was really young.
I don't remember the specific.
He was a whack job. He killed a bunch of nurses. He didn't shoot them, but he killed a bunch of nurses. Yeah, he was a nutball. So we had some people who were.
Yeah, I mean, there've always been mass murderers.
Yeah, but nothing like today. In fact, the first school shooting in the U.S. was, I forget, I looked this up. It's surprising there wasn't.
In the 60s or something?
Yeah, it was sometime in the 60s. And there was like one. And then there was one more the next year. And then it just, when you get up into the 70s, all of a sudden it's like 2 or 3. And then it's, you get into the 80s. And when you get up into this time period, it's like, what time is it? We haven't had our shooting today. Yeah. It's scary stuff. And you're never going to get people to come together from the way it looks because we're not giving up the guns.
No.
I'm not giving up guns. It's not happening. And, they go, well, we should eliminate the Second Amendment for the Constitution. That's a constitutional amendment. I cannot, what do you mean, 30 states?
30 states,
I
yeah.
can't
Actually,
see
this article I've been talking about for a couple of days actually mentions that you're going to have to get 30 plus states to sign on to it if you want to change the Constitution. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
When you think of all the flyover states, not going to happen.
The scary part, which I think we're heading off, the scary part is you can change it legislatively, but you can also change it judicially by just not doing away with it, but reinterpreting what it means. But that's why, fortunately, Trump came into office with a whole bunch of pens in his hand. And one of the things he did is he put in a hardcore conservative. He can get another one or two. Isn't Ruth Bader Ginsburg about ready to croak? I mean, how do they keep her propped up?
It looks like.
How do they keep that woman propped up?
I think they pump formaldehyde directly into her veins.
I wonder if she's related to Keith Richards.
I think every night they have to refresh her formaldehyde.
Yeah. I think she's one of the Rolling Stones. I really do.
I think you might be right. Yeah. I think she's Keith Richards' mom or something.
I don't know how Keith Richards is still alive. I really don't, and he doesn't know. I heard him interviewed once, and he's like, "I don't deserve to be alive." He just is a hardcore party guy.
This is the day of phone calls. We have another caller, Jeff.
Well, let's get him quick because we only got 3 minutes. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, Dave and Gretchen.
Hello, Jeff. You got like 2.5 minutes.
Okay, that's more than enough. I have to disagree. We are taking 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. This latest, it appears to be a false flag attack. There's a girl in the high school interviewed by the Canadian Broadcasting Company where she was walking with this cruise guy when shots started to fire. So there appears to be a second shooter. What my point being is, the script that is being played, Vegas and all this other stuff, is starting to come out, and people are starting to wonder, like, well, what's going on here? There was a live shooter drill also going on here.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've already got a second. They've already got a second. They placed a second person in Mandalay Bay. Well, I don't necessarily mean Mandalay Bay, but there was a second person. There was a second shooter.
Yeah, and so these the reactionary thing of these the gun grabbers, as soon as this stuff hits the news wires, they're already shouting from the treetops, and they don't know what the facts are of the incident yet.
Oh yeah, never let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Exactly. So.
I guess AP somewhere on the internet they picked up the story that he was a white supremacist.
Yeah.
And they circulated it, and it's not true.
Yeah.
No, he was actually an Obama or something like that goofball that tried to assassinate all those Republicans last year at the baseball practice. He was a Bernie Sanders supporter. Yeah. So law-abiding gun owners don't go out and try and shoot Democrats, although maybe that might be...
No, but you know what, Jeff? You're absolutely right. We don't. They accuse us of being violent. You don't ever hear of a group of conservatives torching police cars and shooting people. Every single time, it's liberals that do it. And they're protesting our violence, which we're like at work.
Right, exactly.
To expand on that, there was no Trump supporters going to Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton's rallies during the 2016 campaign,
Right.
beating up people like happened at Trump's rallies.
You're right. We got to go.
Gotta go.
We're at the end of the show.
All right.
But thanks for calling. Appreciate it. And we'd like to thank you for taking time to listen tonight. And we'd appreciate it if you tell your friends about On Target Radio and maybe even advertise.
We'd also like to thank our engineer, Eric Allen, and our sponsors, the Will County chapter of the Illinois State Rifle Association, Yellow Checker of Joliet, My Editor Creative Business Services, the Aurora Sportsman's Club, and Safer USA.
And finally, we hope you listen next week when we have no idea what we're going to be doing.
But it'll be red meat
Absolutely.
that affects your life.